Hello, this is Will. It is February 4th, 2025. Welcome to another Will Radio. I don't remember which number this is. The topic for today, or for tonight, it's 1:38 in the morning. February is opposite month from January. What does that mean? Well, if you have paid close attention to the recordings on YouTube, which I don't expect anyone to have done, you'll notice that in January I made a lot of recordings, and then last few days I haven't made any YouTube videos. You also notice that the vast majority of the January videos were me messing around with Logic Pro, the digital audio workstation, or DAW. Just messing around with it. And at least twice I managed to mess up the recording so much that there was no audio recorded at all. So you could watch me playing with it, but you can't hear what I did. Initially, I was recording DAW work with a microphone. And then at some point I was like, I don't have time for this. Just let me get a video in, because I was trying to do a video a day. So I realized, well, you know what? I could just sit here on the couch or on bed or whatever and play with the DAW and just record it without the mic. So as long as I have it set up to record from the DAW, I can make a video. And that would both get 10 minutes of DAW time in a day, which was what I was trying to do, and also would record a video that I could upload YouTube. So those were two things I was trying to do each day. Spend 10 minutes playing around with the digital audio workstation so I could get to know Logic Pro some, and also make a YouTube video, which I'd upload. And I was mostly able to do that. I think I got at least one video a day for January. Now, they weren't particularly interesting videos, probably, for most people. They probably weren't interesting at all for most people. And to be honest, they weren't even all that interesting to me. I eventually got sick of playing with the DAW like that. And so it's like, I'm going to take a break from that. But anyway, so I have taken a little break for a few days of making videos. And from playing with the DAW, actually, I didn't play with the DAW today. And so I just wanted to make a Will Radio where I talk about what I've been doing January, what I thought worked and didn't work. So I did an experiment where I basically just tried to do everything. Okay, so every once in a while, I let myself go. It's like, all right, read all the books, learn all the things, learn all the programming languages, learn oil painting, everything all at once. Learn ancient Egyptian, learn Japanese, on and on and on. Do it all at the same time. And part of my January experiment was, how much could I get away with, basically? How much of that could I do? And also, what would happen if I was willing to stay up late to get those things done? It's like, okay, I'm going to read this book every day. I'll read at least one sentence or one paragraph. I'll write at least one sentence on a book, that kind of thing, and just did it a little bit every day. Would that lead somewhere after a month? How does that work? Or do I spread myself too thin? Do some things work out, some things don't work out? That was my experiment in January. So what did I do? I did a lot of things, like enough things where I was like, maybe I need a checklist to remind myself of everything I've told myself I'm going to do every night. I don't even remember how many books I was reading at some point. A lot of books every single day. I was reading a little bit of. At some point, I couldn't keep up. So towards the end of the month, I cut down on the number of things I did. But I was reading physics books, math books, whole bunch of computer science books, programming languages stuff. I was playing educational video games, TIS 100 from Zachtronics. I was playing some video game I found on Steam that like teaches you Python by controlling robots in a virtual factory. And yeah, so I was reading a book on the Daphne programming language. I was reading another book on equational reasoning in Haskell. I was reading books on deep learning and LLMs. A mathematical book on point set topology. Reading a book on ancient Egyptian. I decided I needed to learn French and German to help with the ancient Egyptian, because that's actually true if you want to study ancient Egyptian seriously, or like Babylonian or Akkadian or Sumerian or whatever. Like you're expected to have a reading knowledge of French and German. So I was like, okay, how do I get just a reading knowledge of French? So I bought some books on that, and I bought a French book on ancient Egyptian to try to motivate me. Picked up oil paints, water mixable oil paints. I was making, I was painting every day with the oil paints. Read David Mamet book on directing film. And then I decided, well, what's something I could do just in my room that's sort of a approximation of directing film. And I thought, okay, stop motion. So I got some construction paper, I got some sort of stop motion app for my iPhone, and a tripod and some RGB lights. I never got beyond that. I took the lights out of their packages, and that's about it. So even trying to do everything, I didn't have time or energy for that one. What else did I do? Oh yeah, I started reading electronics books, molecular biology books, chemistry books. I bought some chemistry books, and I bought a bunch of these laminated study guides on chemistry. So I figured, okay, these chemistry books are gigantic, but the study guide sheets should tell you at least the things you're supposed to study for a class, sort of like here are the key formulas and key concepts and vocabulary, stuff like that. So I figured, okay, maybe I can at least get an overview of what people think about. What else did I do? I don't remember. Okay. I just have big stacks of books and everything. I was doing a lot. Anytime I felt like, oh yeah, well, it'd be really, really sad if I didn't make progress on this other thing. So I just add it to the pile. So I did a lot. Like more things than I can even easily remember. I'd have to go through my stacks of books and try to sort it all out. Like I said, it got to the point where I couldn't even remember everything I was having to do. How I did it. Well, every day I would wake up and I was like, okay, I've got to get through everything. Now, of course, I still have work, right? So I got to do work. And so I would wait until I had done work, and then, 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, or whatever, I would go into, do it mode where it's like, okay, just got to read these books, got to, paint some painting. There's that old phrase, not a day without a line. So I would always paint a tiny bit, at least one brush stroke, and I would always write at least one sentence in the book, that kind of thing. And I have some apps for Japanese that I was using for remembering the kanji. And I'd study at least, one kanji, all those sorts of things. Read at least one paragraph in all these books I was reading. And I would not go to sleep until I had recorded a YouTube video and had spent 10 minutes with my digital audio workstation. I had written on the book, and also at some point I added sort of like a daily mini Canron hacking. So doing a little bit of programming on something in mini Canron. I was playing around with like Quine stuff and self-reproducing programs, all that. Yeah, and I had all these books, and I tried to make some progress in each of the books. And, there were nights where I didn't go to bed until 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. A lot of times I didn't get to bed until 4 o'clock. In fact, there were plenty of nights where I didn't even get started with the YouTube videos or the writing the book until 4 or 4:30 in the morning. Yeah, so that was what I did. It was pretty intense. Felt a little frenetic, I guess. And okay, so I'll swap these around, how I felt and the good and bad about it. Okay, so how I felt tired. That was part of it. I felt tired. I was going hard, and I felt tired. And at the beginning, it felt tired, sort of like, oh yeah, I put in a good day. Like, hey, I did a lot, accomplished a lot. Kind of tired, but wake up next day, work, and then I have this kind of monkey on my back that I got to get rid of every day. In some sense, it felt accomplishing, or I felt accomplished, I guess. And also it felt very kind of broadening or sort of mind opening. So I think it's easy for me to fall into a rut. Like my friends joke that, Will, has a PhD in programming languages and ostensibly works on PL and stuff like that, but he only programs in Scheme and mini Canron, which is basically true. So things like, okay, well, let me learn Daphne. Daphne is actually a very interesting language. Didn't really know much about Daphne, but reading the book, or like VS Code. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn VS Code because Daphne has good support in VS Code. Also, you can do it in Emacs, but it's like, all right, well, I wanted to learn VS Code anyway, just to kind of see how that works, because a lot of people, I don't know. I also this past month learned about various modern infrastructure type things for web development and all that. So like I learned VS Code. Didn't take me very long to get some feel for it. Learned some Daphne, wrote some Daphne code, started going through the Daphne book. Like that's an example of something that I felt was broadening. Okay. I've been avoiding that. And the oil painting, the water mixable oil painting, that's another example. I'd had those oil paints. I bought them from Blick Art Supply like a year and a half ago. I found the receipt, so it had been about a year and a half. And just the paints were sitting in a bag under my desk for a year and a half, waiting for me to want to do it, to feel like it. So I went from, just having this thing sitting on my desk that I'd mostly forgotten about or felt guilty about when I did see it, to actually painting, and I don't remember exactly where in the month I began it, but, for several weeks I painted every single day. Now I didn't paint any today. Today's part of February, so February is going to work a little differently than January. But for once I started painting in January, I was painting every day. And I'm a noob there, so I was learning just like how do you mix paint some, and how does the paint stick on the paper canvas pads that I bought or whatever. All those sorts of things. So I'm still very new at it, but I was watching some videos and so forth. So that's actually, jumping ahead to some of the good of it. That's one of the good things, I think, is that, it's different when you're doing something and you're actively learning something. Like I started watching YouTube videos on oil painting, and it's like, okay, here are basics of oil painting. I knew a little bit of it, but it's different when you're trying to do it and trying to get the consistency of the paint and trying to figure out what is a medium. Well, what does that mean when it's talking about, people talk about mixing a medium with your paints, your oil paints. Like, what does that even mean? So stuff like that, or, color theory, and, how do you mix the paints, and how do you mix the paints without them all turning, kind of into a brown goop or something. So, when you're actively interested in something and trying to do it, it just opens your eyes to things. Or like I would look at a book and I would see the texture of a brush stroke. Whereas before, I don't know if I would have noticed that or not, but now I look at it, it's like, oh, how would I get that same texture? Like, can I reproduce that? So it just put me in a different perspective for these things. So I think that was a good thing. How else I feel? Well, like I said, I felt tired at some point, and once I felt tired, I didn't feel too untired. I did take a day off one weekend. It just got to be too much, so I just took the day off. I took 1 or 2 days off. I forget. I took at least one day off where I was like, I just can't do it, or don't want to do it. What I also felt like almost every single night, I just felt like, do I really want to do this? It's just like, how much stuff do I have yet to do? And it's already 11 o'clock at night or whatever. Because a lot of times I wouldn't even begin until 11:30 or midnight. So it's like, it's 11:30 at night. I've got all this stuff to do. I know it's going to take me hours. I'm already tired. So, but I did it every night, except for that one night or whatever. I decided I'm not going to do it at all. But the nights I did it, I did it. And I guess one thing that felt exciting was I was doing things I cared about. Like, I've always wanted to learn how to program the Commodore 64, which is one of the machines I grew up playing with. So I've got an old 1986 book on programming Commodore 64, and I have a new book on programming Commodore 64 in C and 6502 or 6510 assembler. So, reading that was interesting. I was happy to kind of get back into the retro computing. I was working on the book. So while the progress was slow, at least I felt some sense of accomplishment where it's like, okay, well, at least I'm trying to write something every day. Now, on the other hand, I felt, I felt that I was spreading myself very thin, that sometimes things just became perfunctory, and especially more as I added more things to do each day, more things became sort of like checking off a box. Okay, so great. I read the one paragraph of this book, but some of these books are, like 800-page oversized biology book, molecular biology book. Great. I read a paragraph. Even reading a paragraph actually might be tricky, given, like once you get into the book, reading a paragraph might actually be some real effort. So, or like the math book, the point set topology book. At some point, reading a paragraph of that book, especially when I'm exhausted or trying to go through a proof or doing a proof, that could be a lot. 5 pages of a math book could be a lot of work, right? That's not the same as 5 pages of a novel. So I felt like I was doing a lot of checkbox type thing. And also I felt like I wasn't going deep in any of these things. Now for something like the oil painting, I didn't care because, I hadn't been doing it at all. So, watching some YouTube videos and just playing with the paints and trying to understand like the different surfaces I was painting on and all that, that's already a whole new world for me. So I didn't feel like that was lacking in depth because of course I'm a beginner. I'm just starting from the beginning. It's not, that's, I'm supposed to feel like that. I'm not supposed to feel like I'm going super deep at that point. That would have been, if I felt like I was going super deep, that would have been delusional. But with things like the mini Canron programming, the daily mini Canron programming, it was kind of cool that I was revisiting some things, but at the same time, some of the things I was revisiting, either I got stuck on, or I just didn't feel like they were that deep, or like, I don't know, like some of the Quine and self-rep stuff is interesting. I think it's worth exploring further, but at the same time, that was all I was doing. All I was doing are the things that I could easily make some progress on in 20-minute chunks or something like that, or 30-minute chunks. And I didn't feel like ultimately this was something that was going to kind of push the state of the art of, say, the mini Canron stuff or relational programming stuff, or really open my eyes. It's like, okay, these are nice, like incremental advances. And I did notice some nice things. And then I also felt, okay, I had an interesting experience. At the same time, I was also playing around with Claude and LLMs and all that. And Claude MCPs, the model context protocols, which I'm sure MCP is from Tron, I assume. It's like MCP and Palantir. Like, these people actually read this, watch the movie or read the novel. Do they actually understand what those words mean or terms mean? Anyway. So I'd been playing around with Claude, and at one point I said, let me try an experiment. So I gave Claude the Scheme Workshop paper on Quine generating relational interpreters. And then I started just giving it some tasks, which were effectively the tasks I had been doing with this, daily mini Canron hacking. And Claude was able to pretty much do the things I asked it to do. And sometimes arguably better than I was doing it in terms of, either coming up with better abstractions or just making fewer mistakes for certain things that were kind of cookie cutter, but where, when I'm doing it at 4 a.m. and trying to rush through it, I was fumbling around and spent a lot of time debugging things that, I basically should have gone slower, but there's basically taking a standard technique and applying it to this artifact, and Claude didn't have any trouble doing some of those things, like threading through an argument monadically. Okay, Claude could do that. And that had a weird effect on me. It's like, okay. Now, it's true that I was the one telling Claude to do it and telling Claude to read this paper and look at this artifact and do this thing. But at the same time, I also felt like, wait, if Claude can do that, then maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I should be doing something deeper that's more foundational. Because I did, try getting Claude to do much deeper things, the more researchy things, and it never got anywhere with that one. So that put me in kind of a weird mood. It's like, I don't want to do the stuff that I can just tell Claude to do. That's not that fun. And I just didn't feel like I was, like I said, working on things that were going to push the state of the art. Another thing that happened was working with the book. So I was trying to write at least one sentence on the book, and I was trying to finish. I was trying, for some definition of finish. I want to, okay, I need a first draft, need to finish this thing. And I'd already gone from maybe some more expansive notion of a series of books and an expansive notion of a single book on relational programming to, relational interpreters as a book. And then over time, it's like, well, let's get up to Quines. Okay. And then, kind of rush into Quines. And I had an intro section on scheme. And at some point, it's like, just burn the first reel, kind of. David Mamet was pointing out how often if you get rid of the first act, that makes a movie better. And, that's not a new idea. That's an old idea. So, all right, well, get rid of all the scheme stuff, the intro scheme stuff. I felt kind of bogged down with that. And at some point, by the end of the month, I felt like I've almost ripped out everything, that I want to talk about. It's like, okay, here's Quines. We'll just go read the Quines paper. Like, if I'm already assuming all this stuff, we'll just go read the Quines paper. You don't need to read a book if I've already removed all the prerequisites and everything else. So, I don't know. That also didn't give me a good feeling. I felt like in an effort to try to make progress and to finish and have a complete first draft and all that, I had, let's turn that on. I had sort of removed all the parts that I actually care about in some sense. And I was thinking about more. I was thinking about more today. Now I'm working on some researchy things, which I'll mention in a few minutes. But what I really would want people to be able to do are the researchy things that I'm doing. Work up to that. And so the Quines are great, and that's kind of an eye-opening thing. But I don't want the Quines to be the end of the story. It's more like the Quines are a neat waypoint that says maybe there's something interesting here. And instead, there's a whole lot more worth talking about and a whole lot of things we don't know how to do. So I didn't like the way the book was feeling. And I got super frustrated. And one day, for one of the recent weekends, was it maybe 2 weekends ago? Not this past weekend, but the weekend before, I took the Saturday, I think it was, and I said, okay, I'm just going to I'll take that day off and I'll just work on the book and, try to make progress. And I didn't make any progress at all. I don't even know if I wrote anything in the book. Maybe I wrote one perfunctory sentence, but I got super frustrated, and I got super frustrated last weekend. So, it's like, it just wasn't going well. Like, I'd stripped out all the fun. It wasn't a fun thing. It was just, I don't know. It felt like it's almost like a guilt trip. Like, I gotta make progress on this. So, I got so frustrated to the point where it's like, I don't ever want to write again. I was just like, forget it, delete it, nothing, no books anymore. Just don't want to do it. So I was like, all right, well, something's off here. I need to just chill. So, I think the way for me to get past that is to write, to write something that's fun to write, and where I feel like I'm making progress, but making progress on things that I want to communicate, and stop worrying about how quickly I write it. Stop worrying about finishing. I don't know. I think I get too obsessed with like just trying to get something done. And And also, I don't know, all the fun was gone from it. I stripped out all the fun and stripped out all the parts that made it accessible to people. So I need to think about that some more. Also, I still have the hardest time writing on a computer. I don't know what it is. So I feel like maybe I just should try going paper again. Well, anyway, I think I'm going to take a little break from the book. So I think for February, I'll probably just take a break. That fits into my other plans for February's anyway. But that was one thing I really got frustrated with. I got super frustrated with the book. And I got frustrated with the videos also. I also got very frustrated with the videos because all right, yet another, 10 minutes of me messing around with. Okay, I did think it was pretty funny that I uploaded at least 2 videos that had no sound whatsoever. It's I realized afterwards, there's no sound. Well, too bad it's going up there. Okay, so that actually that I felt was really funny. It's it reminded me of very Ed Wood, the Plan 9 where Tor Johnson accidentally runs into the doorway of the set and the whole set shakes and they're should we reshoot it? And it's no, keep it. Yeah, that was my Tor Johnson moment, my Ed Wood moment. Yeah, so tired, frustrated deeply with the book, somewhat frustrated with the videos, how the videos came out at the end. And I was watching Artosis cast. The one thing I've kept doing every day is watching at least one Artosis StarCraft 1 game, Artosis cast. I really enjoy watching those. And I like the way those videos feel. That's I don't know, it feels like comfort food or something, just watching one of those videos. And it's okay, whatever I'm doing is the opposite of that. Here's a video of me playing around with the DAW for 10 minutes where I didn't even record the sound. Enjoy my daily video. Well, all I can say is at least I did it, right? So I did it. So it's I don't know. It was a forcing function that got me to open the DAW up and start the timer. It's okay, 10 minutes in the DAW, playing around with it. I didn't make anything that sounded like music. I played around with lots of sounds and I got to know the DAW better. I did go through some videos learning about aspects of it. So, yeah. So the good and bad of it, assessing that. So I don't think I'd done quite something like that before, where I tried to do everything for a full month and just not go to sleep until I had accomplished my things. Now, by the end of the month, I wasn't doing everything. I wasn't reading every single book and all that. But I was doing kind of the core checklist of make a video, which basically degenerated into the DAW videos, spend 10 minutes on the digital audio workstation, at least, do some hacking, daily hacking of Minicanron, and work on the book. In addition, I also did my kanji, remembering the kanji every day. And I read some novels and history books every day. I read a little bit of that. So those things I always did. I feel like there was something else I always did. But anyway, those were the main ones. So I always made sure. Oh, yeah, painted. I always painted at least, something, a little couple strokes or whatever. Maybe a little painting. Really small painting, 2 inches by 2 inches or something. So I did those things every day. No matter when I started. So if I didn't start until, there were plenty of times where I didn't start until after midnight, and I still got it done. So the good parts of it is, well, I got exposed to totally new things. So I finally, after a year and a half, started doing the oil painting. So that was the thing that it required to get me started oil painting. In a sense, I feel like this was very similar to the Kilotube challenge, which was, okay, I'm, for whatever reason, so afraid of making videos or so worried about quality that I'm just not doing them, or, and doing 70 takes and deleting it. I went from that to, here's a video of me making music where I didn't record the sound. Okay, upload it anyway, right? So I definitely lowered my quality bar, and I no longer have any trouble making YouTube videos and uploading them. So, yeah. So I had a similar feeling of, well, I don't really know how to do oil painting, and but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So these things that I've been waiting on, I got started on. And the painting feels like, that one's something that's kind of fun. I've gotten far enough into it where, I want to continue that. That's just like a fun thing. So it's not like I'm good at it or really understand that much, but towards the end of the month, I at least painted one thing that kind of resembled, an actual painting. So that was cool. Let's see what else. Learning about Daphne was very interesting. Daphne is a very cool language. I didn't realize how closely it was inspired by Eiffel, because I did an internship with Bertrand Meyer for Eiffel a long time ago. I thought Eiffel was a super cool language, but designed by contract and Hoare axiomatic semantics and Floyd logics and all that stuff. So to see that there's a version of a language inspired by Eiffel where actually you use like provers or like constraint solvers, Z3 or whatever, and you can actually statically prove these things. I thought that was really cool. So I'd like to learn more about that language. So that got me started on that, and then I got to see the cool part of it, of that language. I don't know if I want to finish reading that book. I'm finding the book's dragging a little bit because I think aspects of the book are not really aimed at me audience-wise, so parts of it go slow, and also there's sort of two aspects of programming in Daphne, like two approaches. There's an imperative language and a functional language. The imperative language, while maybe practical, like I kind of find disgusting. I also find the syntax of Daphne kind of disgusting. They're like disgusting aspects of it because, I like scheme and Lisp and S expressions and logic programming and pure functional, pure relational programming. So I think the book is kind of hard for me to go through. I feel like it's a little bit of a grind. Also, I actually got this last month, instead of just paper books, I got a number of books on either Kindle or like Apple Books. And so this is like a Kindle style book, ebook. And I find it's okay in some ways, but I'd much prefer having like the paper version for just like flipping through and, getting my bearings and so forth. I find it really hard to flip through like the ebooks in the same way. So I don't know. I might be at the point now where I just like start doing real stuff. That's probably better, is if I started, taking real Daphne code and playing around with it and trying to understand it, and then go back to the book if I need it. But anyway, that was a good thing. It's like learning about some Daphne. The Haskell stuff, I don't get into it enough for that to really take. It wasn't out of lack of interest. I actually think it's pretty cool. It's a Richard Byrd book. No relation that I know What else? Yeah, the Python game. It's kind of cute, but once again, I don't think I was really the audience for it. I think the audience probably people who had less programming experience. It was more of like an excuse for me to get myself to actually program some Python because I've had such a bad attitude towards Python. What else? Okay, so the point set topology book, I got into it a little bit. And once again, if I'm trying to read that book at 4 a.m., that's just like not happening. Like, once you get past the very intro stuff, reading a math book when you're just exhausted, at least for me, that doesn't work. It really needs my full attention and rest. So, and also I just kind of ran out of time, so that one sort of starved out in my biased interleaving search strategy. Same with the molecular biology, some gigantic molecular biology book. Yeah, that didn't last very long. Stuff like that, chemistry book. So I'd say the winners there, Daphne, oil painting. I think the book actually was probably a winner in that feeling that frustrated is probably good longer term, even though I hated it at the time. It made me think, okay. I mean, this whole thing about the books and all that has at least made me think really hard about, well, what's important to me about writing? What's important to me about sharing and that type of thing. And same with the daily hacking on Minicanron. I was like, it's too shallow. Those are, it's okay to do some just playing around fun stuff. It's not like I'm above it, but when that was all I was doing, I thought, that feels out of control. It feels like I'm not really going as hard as I can. So it made me want to do that differently, maybe think hard about it. Now, the good news was I was doing something with Minicanron, and I was doing something with the book every day. And so my theory was, well, doing something at least gets me closer to my goal than doing nothing. And that's probably true because if nothing else, it led me to a sense of frustration. And with the videos, the same thing. It's like, okay, I can make a video a day, all right? I can make a video every single day of 10 minutes of me messing around with the DAW, with or without sound. I still find that really funny. Here's Will making music. You can't hear the music, but believe me, it's there. So clearly I can do these things every day at like some level, and I could just back off some, right? It's like, I don't have to do everything. I could just back off, make one video of playing around with the DAW every day, write 3 sentences or 4 sentences, instead of 1 sentence for the book and all that. So I could just back off on the number of things I did a bit, cut it in half. I don't know, cut it in a third, and just still try to do the same thing, just, with fewer things. So that'd be a possibility. And then, let's see what else. There's something else. I blanked on it. Videos, writing, hacking every day. Yeah. I also got really frustrated with my Japanese. I was putting in some time every day, trying to get through this, the Joyo kanji, the 2200-ish kanji that high school students in Japan know. And in the beginning, it was going pretty well, but then, as usual, at some point, I both felt like I was moving pretty slowly and I was starting to mix things up. I didn't have good stories and all that. And once again, it felt sort of perfunctory. And I felt like I was getting stuck on these things. So, good and bad. I think good, it got me unstuck on some things like the oil paint, or got me started with the oil painting. Some of the things I was really looking forward to, like the C64 game programming in C. That was really fun. Getting to know about Daphne more. Now I want to know more Daphne. So that's all cool. And I was reading a lot. I read a whole lot more than I had been reading recently. So there's some good and bad. I was tired. Well, I was tired and frustrated by the end of it, I guess. So what do I want to do differently in February, which I've already started. So it's February 4th now. Well, logically in my mind it's February 3rd, but will almost be February 4th. Now it's 2:24 a.m. Last month, that would be early in the night for me. I still have all this work to do. For me tonight, I was like, well, I could go to sleep. I could play a game of StarCraft just for fun, whatever. Oh yeah, I was also playing StarCraft. I was playing Brood War. I was playing StarCraft 2. I was trying to do everything. But, I took a long nap earlier today, so I feel pretty energetic. So February, I'm not going to do the same things I did in January. It's going to be very different. So first of all, I'm going to definitely get more sleep. I am going to do many fewer things. In fact, I'm really only going to concentrate on two main things. So one is I want to lose weight. Had not been watching what I eat, or I had been watching what I eat, but I wasn't paying enough attention. Well, I don't know how to say it. It's not like I wasn't paying attention. It was that I wasn't prioritizing. Like I found if I really want to lose weight by eating less, then I have to pay attention to that like all day. I can't, I have to, set some rules for myself. Like I'm not going to eat anything until 1 p.m. or whatever, or I'm going to have coffee without milk or creamer. I can have that, but I'm not going to have anything with any calories before or after a certain time, that kind of a thing. So that's something I want to do. So that's one thing I'm going to do. And then the other thing I want to do is learn something I learned in January, is that there's this body of work on reversible prologue interpreters for program synthesis that I didn't know about. So I want to make some videos talking about that. But that's something that I want to get into. And so already in February, I took a big chunk out. I want to do big chunks in February, basically, and only do a couple things. So there was a book I was almost finished reading, so I just went ahead and finished it. And then there was another book where I'd been reading maybe 30 pages a day or 40 pages a day, and it's like, all right, 150 pages left, and I just stayed up late and just read the whole thing. Not like 5 a.m. late, but later than I probably would have stayed up. And so I just put that book to bed. So kind of just big chunks. And today there's a paper that is on this reversible prologue interpreters for synthesis. I learned about that, I don't know, week ago? I don't remember. I guess maybe it's a week ago, a little less than a week ago. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. My time sense is so messed up with that schedule I had. In any case, maybe it was just last Wednesday I found out about it, or last Tuesday. Doesn't really matter. The point was, I printed out the paper yesterday maybe, and today I actually read most of it. And this is, a 15-page prologue paper from 1990 that technically is full of interesting ideas, but it's quite subtle in a lot of places. And It's actually, the system was implemented on a Japanese Lisp machine, which I'd never heard of, this Lisp machine. It was like some sort of parallel Lisp machine implementation from Japan in the late 80s. So it's like that sort of thing, right? It's like, anyway, what I would have done in January was I would say, okay, here's a paper. I'll add it to my giant queue of things that I do every day. And I'll try to read like a page of it a day. And then probably when push came to shove, I would say, well, I'll read a paragraph. So this paper would have taken me 2 weeks to read or something if I had finished it. But today I tried reading it really intensely. Now tonight I started it, I don't know when I start reading it, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And I took a big chunk out of it. I didn't read everything closely, but I really did read the paper with my full attention and, marked it up. Then, I have probably one more session on the paper for like an initial pass of it. And I've got a lot of questions or a lot of papers it references. I'll probably have to go and read some of those. I didn't, I'm proud of myself. I didn't say, okay, there are 5 papers that are referenced here that I could find useful. So I'll print out the 5 papers and I'll sort them and whatever, and then who knows what. It's like, no. I'm going to concentrate my full effort right now on this paper and the code and, try and understand my questions and all that. And then I'll decide what's the next thing to do. So I'm going to finish giving this paper a close read before I take my next step. But that's my other goal for February, is to take these papers, and I think I've got a collection of 6 or 7 of them that I started from, including very recent work. This is work by a whole bunch of different people. And try to understand it. So it turns out that people were doing relational interpreters in Prolog in a way that I hadn't seen before, but the feeling of it's like very, very different in some sense than what we've done in Minicanron. But I think some of the stuff with Metacanron and Midori Canron, some of the tricks there we've been figuring out maybe are applicable. Anyway, the paper I was reading from 1990 actually has a mixture of different interpreters. One is fully relational Prolog meta interpreter, Prolog and Prolog, but it also uses the whole system uses some interpreters, that another interpreter at least that isn't relational. So I'm trying to wrap my head around that. It's actually very subtle, and I don't think they have the full code in the paper. And like I said, it's from some Lisp machine, some 1980s Japanese Lisp machine. And one of the papers that the authors who are Japanese that they reference is in Japanese. Like several of the papers they reference are in Japanese. And my Japanese is not at the point where I can read those papers, I can assure you. If I can even find those papers, I don't even know if I could find them easily. But in any case, that's what I want to do in February, is really concentrate on those papers and trying to understand that work, that line of work. So this is like a mixture of learning. This is a certain type of learning. And also, I think it has overlap with like inductive logic programming, but it feels different. It's like an explanatory based learning. So very interesting looking. So for February, I just want to take these papers. Now, I have other papers to read. I have a lot of other papers to read in February. So that's fine. I will try to do the same thing with those, take big chunks out of those, not defer, when it's time for me to read a paper, just go ahead and do it. So February, I'm going to be reading papers and trying to do deep dives. And that felt good, just reading the paper today. I get tired of reading it, but I go back and read some more, and it's like, okay, this is a paper I can read, and I will get things out of it, or I am getting things out of it that I don't think anyone else in the world reading this paper would get. Doesn't mean that my insights are better than what other people would get, but I have a certain point of view and perspective and 20 years of messing around with mini-Canron and relational interpreters that is just different than what other people have, even people who work in mini-Canron stuff. Like, I just know some different things. A lot of overlap with other people, of course. But there are just some things when I was looking at the paper, I was like, okay, I don't think anyone else would look at it quite the way I am. And so that's like, feels very different than, oh yeah, you can just ask Claude to do it. Now, will anything interesting come out of it? I don't know. But I find it interesting. Anyway, these papers are interesting. It's also interesting to see that people were doing in 1990 things that are related to stuff that we're doing now or have been doing recently in mini-Canron. But it definitely has a very different feel. So I was like, okay, could they learn stuff from us? Can we learn stuff from them? What's the combination? Also, could we make a super Barlaman that uses some of the learning stuff? And it looks like learning in sort of more of a classical AI learning rather than sort of modern machine learning. So, can you combine modern machine learning with it? So anyway, that's interesting. That's very interesting to me. So, so I'm not going to do all these things I have been doing. Now, what am I allowed to do? Well, I think I'm allowed to do whatever I want. So, like I said, I was maybe going to play a game of StarCraft for fun. If I want to do that, that's fine. If I want to do some painting for fun, that's fine. If I want to play with the DAW, that's fun. Oh yeah, that was another good thing. So another good thing is like I had all this software for making noises and sound for a long time and hardware. And so, I actually spent a fair amount of time with the DAW learning my way around it. Now, I still don't know how to make anything that sounds good, but the basic interface and some of the hotkeys and all that, it's like, all right, I've got enough of a base where, I could go back and maybe start concentrating on making stuff without fumbling around quite as much. So that I think was another good thing. I was using the DAW a lot. So, I think in February, if I want to make some music, sure. If I want to do some painting, sure. If I want to make a video, sure. But if I make a video in February, it's going to be a different type of video. It's not going to be 10 minutes of me messing around with the DAW. It's going to be maybe talking about one of these papers or talking about what I find interesting, or maybe doing some, live coding, trying to implement one of the papers. I don't know. At the same time, I don't, I don't really feel like distracting myself from these papers too much. So like if the live coding of the paper helps me, then maybe I would do it. Or if I'm just really excited about a paper, sort of like our Toastless cast, and I want to talk about the paper, actually that's probably the type of video I'd make. Like when this current paper, I finish reading it and have it all marked up, maybe do a video on that. Now, I don't know. Maybe go through these 5 or 6 papers and just talk about that and think about. I don't know. That could be interesting. We'll see. I'm not sure. So I can do whatever I want, but I'm not going to do everything. Okay, so that's the main thing. It's like, well, I'm not going to feel like I have to learn how to play Brood War. Well, I played 2 games of Brood War on ladder. Not on ladder. Like, I'm not even allowed to play on ladder yet. But I can't play ranked. I guess I could play ladder or something like that. I'm such a noob, I don't even know. I hadn't even played on my placement games and Brood War. But both games I played online, I was playing pretty late at night. So at some point, I just saw messages in Korean with question marks like, what in the world are you doing, you noob? It was so bad. Oh, people are so good at that game. Yeah, so if I want to play some StarCraft, that's fine. If I want to paint some, that's fine. If I want to make some noise, that's fine. But that's all optional. That's stuff I can do on my own. I don't feel like I have to. If I want to do some Daphne, that's fine. But I'll probably do these things differently. Like if I want to play around with music, I think I'll do something differently. I'm not just going to click on the DAW for 10 minutes. I'll do, who knows, maybe I'll try the MIDI controller or something else, or, I don't know, do something different. I was getting bored and tired of just playing around with the DAW that way. What about the book? I already said, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a hiatus on the book. Maybe I'll do something in February, maybe not, but I think I got to rethink it. Like what would be fun, what would be interesting. I think I scoped it down too much. I don't think that's a good idea. Maybe in some narrow sense of just like finishing, but it was never about just finishing. Yeah. And anyway, I have to rethink that. I've had such hard time with getting a book done. What about the Japanese and the kanji? I don't know. I didn't do my Japanese today for like the first time in quite a few weeks. So I got to think about that. Yeah, I might just take a little break and then start again, but maybe just concentrate more on the stories, or I don't know, maybe I just need a little break. So future experiments. So okay, there were some good things about January, as frantic as it was. Starting the oil painting was really cool. Learning about Daphne was really cool. Learning VS Code was fine. I don't think I'm going to switch to VS Code, but I learned how to do LaTeX and VS Code. That was kind of cool, actually. So sort of opened my mind to some possibilities that I didn't know how to set up in Emacs. Now, most of the things actually I learned you could set up in Emacs. But it was interesting just to see like, oh yeah, you just go to the store or whatever they call it and like download some random package. Who knows what it was. And then you had this capability, and watching how Daphne, the Daphne verifier works is kind of cool. So yeah, there were definitely some good things about January. There's also, I think February already feels good. At least today felt good. I don't know. The last couple of days maybe didn't feel so good, but tonight felt good. Tonight felt good because I was going deep. Yeah. So I want to go deep. So I have been thinking a little bit about maybe each month doing like a little experiment. It's kind of like Recurse Center. At least they used to love doing experiments. I don't know if they still do. Now, sometimes you could do too many experiments. Like, well, okay, do you just do experiments? Do you learn from the experiments? But maybe there's some sort of hybrid. Maybe there's like, maybe I interleave, and some months I go deep, and some months are more wide, like exploratory type things. Do I want to do another month where I'm trying to do so much and not going to sleep until I'm done? I don't know about that part. I mean, I wanted to see if I could do it. I was like, I can do it. Okay, I learned I could do it. But I didn't didn't like the way it ended up. I think I just added too many things and I was starting too late. So I like the deeper part that I'm doing right now, and I'm not going to stay up all night to read that paper. I got a big chunk of it, but I want to get my sleep and be fresh for tomorrow. Well, I should be able to finish the paper tomorrow, and then decide what next paper to read. There are some papers that this paper cites that I might go off and try to read to understand better. At some point, I'll try to implement some stuff maybe, or play around with prologue or whatever. So I have to decide what I want to do. Do I want to try to interleave? Some months deep, some months wide, or maybe have more like a combination of deep and wide things that I do at the same time. Maybe I even interleave days. I have a deep day and a wide day. Switch every other day. I'm not sure. Anything complicated I find tricky if I'm traveling or have deadlines or things like that. It's like, well, which day is it? Is it a deep day or a wide day? I don't know. That gets hard. So at least January was simple. I understood what I was doing. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to do it, but it was very simple. And I think February will also be simple, like really only concentrating on two things. Okay. Anything else? I am also reading a little still. But really I'm only going to concentrate on those two things. So like within a month, I think I can get a pretty good sense of that area of research, kind of where it's at. At least an understanding where I think I can play around with the ideas and talk to people who've worked on it, try to understand where it can be pushed or what good and bad things are. And then, another thing I do want to do is learn more about modern machine learning and deep learning and Monte Carlo tree search and embeddings and all this other stuff. And in particular, how can I combine it? Or how could it be combined with like mini-Canron and relational interpreters, or the stuff I'm reading about now with the Prolog meta interpreters and that older style of learning. Trying to figure out how to combine things. That's something I want to do. So I do have some books on deep learning and stuff like that, but I'm not going to make those a priority this month. I'm going to try to keep the number of things very small, and I'm just going to focus on this one topic that's very interesting. Try to go deep. And if I make more videos this month, I want them to be like, I want them to be deep and not perfunctory. I guess this video at this point is long enough to not be perfunctory. I don't know if it's deep, but it's been going on for a while. I did get a new computer for sort of work reasons. I had to upgrade from my Intel, so I got a brand new maxed out M4 laptop, 128 gigs of RAM and 8 terabytes of flash. Pretty expensive, but my old computer was like 6 years. I just got it myself, it's a personal laptop. My old computer was like 6 years old, and the down arrow key wasn't working and stuff like that. One cool thing about this machine is that when I process this video tonight, for like the sound leveling and all that, I'll be able to process the video at a higher resolution than I had been on the Intel Mac. And not only will the video finish processing in Final Cut Pro much, much faster, like 8 or 10 times faster or something like that, but at a higher resolution, no less. but the fans will never kick on. Whereas when I was processing videos before, if I made a 1 hour video, it would take an hour to process and the fans would be on the full time. And I couldn't even use the computer, but I'd try to sleep and I'd be trying to process the video late at night and trying to sleep through this hurricane of fan noise. Now I don't even have to plug the laptop in. I can process the video. I could be using it for other stuff. I could be programming in Mini Canron, no problem, just on battery, and it'll still finish quickly. So that's definitely a big upgrade. Now, one thing I notice that I do kind of miss is, like, as much as I'm not a huge fan of that bar on the keyboard thing with those virtual keys, I forget what they call it, that they've removed. I did like the fact that when you're recording a video, you could look and it told you how long the video had been recording and how many megabytes of recording and all that. So I'm still used to that. A couple times I've recorded videos in January where somehow the video stopped and I didn't even notice. I was like so used to looking at my keyboard to see if the video is recording. Anyway, so this laptop's a nice upgrade, and it also has HDMI built in and like an SD card or whatever. So that's pretty cool. And it's nice having a keyboard that works and it's not broken. I'm babying this machine a little bit. I'm trying to, if I'm watching like StarCraft or something while eating, I try to put a paper towel over the keyboard so I don't get little crumbs. I have the space black. I tell you, every single little speck of dust shows up on this machine. Maybe that's good. Maybe it makes me more paranoid about it than from my other machine. Okay. Well, that's it for now. So don't expect a video every day. I promise not to make a video every day, but I also promise, the good and bad news, I guess, is like I will not be on a kilotube pace for good or for bad. But I also won't be uploading, me playing around with the DAW with no sound. So at least in February, who knows? March could be a different month. Maybe March will all be me uploading videos without sound, music videos without sound. This is probably the best type of music video I make, actually, is music videos without sound. Okay, well, that's enough rambling. All right, talk to you later. Bye-bye.